Most people fail under bad leadership because they react with frustration, anger, or open defiance. But power, real power, is never loud. It is subtle, calculated, and patient. Today, I will teach you how to survive under fools, exploit their mistakes without being noticed, and quietly position yourself to win while they remain blind to your strategy. This is not about rebellion. It is about mastery, the art of winning without being seen. To survive and ultimately thrive under a leader who lacks competence, the first and most essential step is to understand them fully, to know their weaknesses, their blind spots, and the limitations that define their authority. A foolish leader often operates on impulse, ego, and superficial appearances, rather than strategy or reason, and this creates both danger and opportunity for those who are perceptive enough to observe. The key is not to confront these weaknesses openly, for doing so would provoke resentment, insecurity, or even retaliation, but to study them with precision, almost as if dissecting a mechanism. Every inconsistency, every lapse in judgment, every impulsive decision becomes a map, a guide to navigating the chaos they produce. Observing their patterns of thought, understanding what triggers their anger, pride, or insecurity, allows you to anticipate their behavior, to act in ways that protect yourself while quietly advancing your own position. The more thoroughly you understand their incompetence, the more effectively you can maneuver without drawing attention. This requires patience, restraint, and a careful balance of visibility and discretion. You must watch them interact with others, listen to what they value and what they ignore, notice how they respond under pressure, and identify where their confidence masks their uncertainty. Each of these observations is a piece of the puzzle, revealing how their decisions are likely to unfold and where opportunities for advantage may arise. Recognizing their weaknesses also allows you to protect yourself from unnecessary risks. When a leader is blind to reality, even minor missteps on your part can be magnified into serious consequences. By knowing exactly where their blind spots lie, you can navigate around traps they may unknowingly set, align yourself with circumstances that shield you from their errors, and avoid drawing attention to your own strategic actions. At the same time, understanding their limitations is not merely defensive. It is the foundation for influence and control. A leader's incompetence creates gaps in authority, areas where decisions are left unexamined or tasks are poorly executed. These gaps are openings for the astute individual to step in subtly to ensure outcomes align with their own interests while appearing loyal or indifferent. In essence, their weakness becomes your tool, but only if it is observed, analyzed, and leveraged with discretion. This requires emotional intelligence as well as analytical skill. You must resist the urge to judge openly or vent frustration, for a foolish leader's pride is fragile and easily wounded. Instead, maintain a demeanor of respect, compliance, or neutrality while your mind records every error, hesitation, and miscalculation. Over time, these observations compound into a profound understanding of their character, motives, and tendencies, giving you the ability to anticipate their choices before they act. In doing so, you position yourself not as a threat, but as an indispensable presence capable of navigating the chaos they create. This mastery of observation transforms danger into opportunity. What others perceive as incompetence becomes a roadmap for advancement. You learn when to speak, when to remain silent, when to intervene subtly, and when to allow events to unfold naturally. By knowing your leader's weaknesses intimately, you turn their flaws into strategic advantages, ensuring that your survival is not dependent on their competence, but on your skill, patience, and insight. In this way, understanding a foolish leader's limitations is not an exercise in cynicism, but a practical necessity. It is the first step in navigating a world dominated by unpredictability, the first step in transforming subordination into subtle power, the first step in quietly winning while chaos reigns around you. Mastering the art of silence is perhaps the most underestimated skill for surviving and thriving under a leader who lacks intelligence or discernment. Many people believe that speaking up, pointing out errors, or demonstrating their own insight will secure their position or earn respect. But in reality, it often provokes hostility, jealousy, or suspicion. Silence is not a sign of weakness or submission. It is a strategic choice, a tool that allows one to observe, analyze, and act without attracting unnecessary attention. The fool in power is easily threatened by intelligence that is overt. They perceive insight as criticism, initiative as disloyalty, and curiosity as insubordination. By speaking only when it serves a clear purpose, you avoid triggering their insecurities, and in doing so, you preserve your position while gaining valuable time to assess the situation. Silence allows you to see the world as it truly is, unfiltered by the noise of impulsive decisions and erratic behavior. It gives you the ability to notice patterns, to understand alliances, rivalries, and tendencies that are invisible to those who react quickly without reflection. By observing quietly, you gather information, identify weaknesses in others, and anticipate the consequences of decisions before they are made. Every word spoken carries risk, but every silence is an opportunity to consolidate power and influence subtly. Acting silently does not mean being passive. It means thinking several steps ahead while others act impulsively. A quiet observer can manipulate circumstances without being noticed, ensuring that the outcome benefits them while the fool believes they are in control. Furthermore, silence builds an aura of neutrality and discretion. People who speak less often are underestimated, yet they are constantly analyzing and adapting. Others may speak to impress, to dominate, or to prove themselves, but those who remain silent are free from the scrutiny and emotional reactions that often compromise judgment. In this way, silence becomes a shield, protecting you from unnecessary conflicts, and a sword, allowing you to strike when the moment is most advantageous. Choosing when to speak requires precision. Words should be deployed only when they change the outcome in your favor, clarify a situation to your advantage, or subtly guide decisions without revealing your intentions. Every contribution must be calculated, delivered with timing that maximizes influence and minimizes risk. Silence, therefore, is an instrument of power, allowing you to measure the landscape, assess human nature, and maneuver through chaos without revealing your hand. It cultivates patience, discipline, and strategic foresight, qualities that the foolish leader often lacks. In addition, mastering silence protects you from emotional reaction. Under incompetent leadership, frustration, fear, or anger can tempt one to respond impulsively. Speaking out of emotion is dangerous. It exposes vulnerability, creates enemies, and diminishes authority in the eyes of peers. Silence, by contrast, allows you to maintain control over your internal state, to act deliberately, and to preserve the perception of composure. Over time, this careful restraint becomes a form of influence itself. People notice those who do not react hastily, who do not participate in petty disputes, and who observe the unfolding of events with calm attention. Such individuals appear wise and dependable, gaining the trust of allies and the unspoken respect of the foolish leader. Silence, therefore, is both protection and strategy, a means of survival and a pathway to subtle dominance. By speaking sparingly, thinking deeply, and acting only when necessary, you navigate the dangers of idiotic leadership, turning what appears to be a limitation into an advantage and quietly positioning yourself to achieve outcomes that others fail to perceive or attain. To survive and succeed under a foolish leader, one must master the delicate balance of invisibility and decisive action. Being seen too clearly can be dangerous. Drawing attention to your abilities, intelligence, or ambitions may provoke envy, suspicion, or retaliation. Yet complete invisibility without action ensures stagnation and vulnerability. The true art lies in remaining unnoticed while maneuvering strategically, influencing outcomes, and positioning oneself for advantage. Acting decisively from the shadows requires careful observation and timing, a keen sense of when to intervene and when to allow events to unfold. The world created by an incompetent leader is often chaotic, with poor decisions, missed opportunities, and unintended consequences unfolding daily. In this environment, those who remain quiet and cautious, yet alert and ready, have the greatest chance of capitalizing on situations that others cannot see or understand. Quiet action does not mean passivity. It is the disciplined application of skill, insight, and foresight, applied in ways that do not trigger the folly of those in power. By allowing the foolish leader and other visible actors to dominate attention and take credit for chaos, you avoid unnecessary conflict while subtly guiding circumstances to your benefit. This requires understanding the motivations, insecurities, and blind spots of those around you. Each interaction, each decision, each opportunity must be evaluated for risk and reward, with the goal of achieving influence without exposure. Invisibility allows you to observe mistakes in real time, learning not only from the leader, but from the reactions of colleagues, subordinates, and rivals. It creates a safe space for experimentation, for testing strategies that would be too dangerous if executed openly. By remaining unseen, you maintain control over perception, shaping how others view your actions without overtly revealing your intentions. Decisive action, when combined with invisibility, becomes a force multiplier. When a moment arises where intervention is necessary, it is executed swiftly, precisely, and effectively, leaving others unaware of your involvement until the outcome benefits you. This form of action requires patience, timing, and a deep understanding of human behavior. For the success of any move depends not only on its immediate effect, but on the perception of those who witness it. The invisible strategist thrives on subtlety, using minimal movements to create maximal results. Opportunities that others overlook are seized quietly. Credit is rarely taken publicly, but influence is accumulated steadily. By acting decisively from a position of apparent neutrality, you ensure that your growth and security are not dependent on the approval or competence of the foolish leader. Furthermore, remaining invisible while acting decisively builds resilience and adaptability. You are less exposed to attacks, less vulnerable to misjudgments, and more capable of shifting strategies when circumstances change. Every choice is calculated, every step considered, and every action measured for its long-term effect. This approach also manipulates perception. Others see you as calm, unthreatening, and patient, which lowers their guard and provides even greater opportunity to influence events subtly. In a world dominated by incompetence, visibility is often a liability, while discreet action becomes a form of quiet power. Over time, the ability to move unseen, to act decisively without drawing attention, transforms survival into mastery. You learn not only to protect yourself from the chaos of poor leadership, but also to harness it, turning disorder into opportunity and unpredictability into leverage. By remaining invisible yet decisive, you navigate the pitfalls of idiotic leadership with skill and subtlety, ensuring that while others are caught up in reactive struggle, you quietly position yourself to achieve outcomes that are as strategic as they are unnoticed. Every mistake made by a foolish leader is not merely an inconvenience. It is a doorway to opportunity, a chance to advance quietly while others flounder in confusion. Incompetent leaders are blind to the consequences of their actions, and their errors create openings that can be exploited by those who understand the subtle dynamics of power and human behavior. The key is to remain observant, patient, and restrained, for opportunities will rarely present themselves to the impatient or the impulsive. Each error, whether in judgment, decision-making, or interpersonal management, reveals a weakness that can be leveraged. By studying the consequences of these missteps, you gain insight into the leader's priorities, insecurities, and patterns of behavior, allowing you to anticipate future mistakes and position yourself advantageously before chaos escalates. It is not enough to simply notice errors. One must learn to convert them into personal or strategic gain without provoking suspicion. This requires subtlety, timing, and an understanding of perception. For overt exploitation can backfire and reveal your intentions to those who are easily threatened by competence. Quietly taking advantage of the gaps left by incompetence allows you to accomplish tasks more effectively, gain credibility, or consolidate influence while appearing loyal or neutral. A foolish leader often misjudges the abilities of subordinates, leaving responsibilities neglected or poorly managed. By stepping into these voids discreetly, you ensure outcomes align with your interests, and at the same time, you cultivate the appearance of dependability. Colleagues and peers may notice your effectiveness, but without realizing it, they perceive it as a natural consequence of circumstance rather than a deliberate strategy. Mistakes can also reveal vulnerabilities in alliances and hierarchies. When a leader missteps, loyalties shift, influence fluctuates, and the balance of power becomes unstable. A keen observer recognizes these subtle shifts and acts accordingly, forming discrete connections, supporting certain initiatives, or positioning themselves where influence is growing while remaining unthreatening. Exploiting errors effectively requires emotional intelligence as well as strategic thought. The foolish leader may react unpredictably to perceived slights or interference, so every action must be measured, indirect, and insulated from exposure. One must cultivate a calm, composed demeanor that conceals ambition, patience that masks strategy, and competence that is never flaunted. In doing so, mistakes are transformed into tools, gaps into stepping stones, and chaos into advantage. Over time, this approach develops into a systematic practice of leveraging incompetence without attracting attention. Each incident of mismanagement becomes a lesson, each poor decision a map for maneuvering, and each opportunity seized quietly builds a foundation for long-term success. Furthermore, turning their errors into opportunities requires foresight. You must consider not only the immediate effect of an action, but also the long-term implications, ensuring that temporary gains do not provoke future risks. The most effective individuals under idiotic leadership are those who can think several steps ahead, anticipate reactions, and act in ways that consolidate power without confrontation. This is the essence of silent mastery, exploiting weaknesses while remaining invisible, gaining influence while appearing harmless, and shaping outcomes while letting the incompetent take credit for the circumstances. Every mistake by the leader is a chance to advance subtly, to refine strategy, and to position oneself in a way that protects and enhances both security and power. By consistently converting errors into opportunities, one learns not only to survive, but to thrive in an environment where foolishness is abundant and competence is rare, turning disorder into a ladder for advancement that the unobservant and the impatient will never see. Under a foolish leader, no one is truly trustworthy, and the survival of the clever depends on the ability to build alliances with discretion and strategic intent. Relationships, when approached recklessly, can become liabilities rather than assets. For loyalty is often fragile, ambition is hidden, and perception is unreliable. The key is to connect with others in ways that strengthen your position while minimizing exposure to betrayal or conflict. Discretion in forming alliances allows you to cultivate influence behind the scenes, to understand the motives and weaknesses of those around you, and to use these connections when the moment for advantage arises. One must approach alliances not as friendships, but as instruments of power, valuable for what they allow you to accomplish, rather than for emotional comfort. Every interaction should be assessed for utility, potential risk, and the subtle ways it can enhance your ability to survive and thrive. Observing behavior carefully, noting who seeks approval, who acts impulsively, and who remains vigilant, allows you to predict actions and align with those whose interests temporarily coincide with your own. These connections must be maintained quietly, without overt displays of loyalty that could attract scrutiny or provoke jealousy. Strategic alliances provide protection, insight, and opportunity. They can serve as early warning systems for impending decisions, as channels for influence in areas controlled by others, and as support when navigating difficult circumstances created by poor leadership. At the same time, alliances must be flexible and temporary in nature. The wise individual understands that circumstances change, that loyalties shift, and that power dynamics are in constant flux under incompetent authority. Committing too deeply or trusting too openly can expose you to the consequences of miscalculation or betrayal. By maintaining a network of discrete connections, one can adjust to the shifting landscape, seizing opportunities as they arise while avoiding entanglement in disputes that do not serve long-term objectives. This approach also requires careful observation of human behavior. Understanding the desires, fears, and ambitions of those around you allows you to influence them subtly, to anticipate reactions, and to manipulate circumstances without overt action. Alliances become a form of leverage, not only in achieving immediate goals but in positioning oneself for eventual advancement when the leader uses weaknesses create openings. It is essential to act in ways that are imperceptible to others, for visibility invites scrutiny, resentment, or intervention. Every conversation, every gesture, every minor favor can be used to solidify influence if handled with subtlety. Patience is critical, for alliances often yield results only after careful cultivation over time. Rushing or forcing connections can reveal intention, creating distrust and diminishing potential influence. The individual who masters the art of discreet alliances thrives not because they are the loudest or most ambitious, but because they understand that survival and growth are achieved through observation, subtle influence, and the careful orchestration of relationships. Over time, these quiet alliances form a network of support, information, and opportunity that protects against the unpredictable actions of the foolish leader. They allow the astute observer to act when necessary, to guide outcomes subtly, and to achieve strategic goals while remaining largely unseen. In this environment, patience, observation, and discretion transform human connections from sources of uncertainty into tools of power. By trusting selectively, connecting strategically, and maintaining flexibility, one builds a system of influence that amplifies personal capability, safeguards position, and allows the quiet accumulation of advantage even under the erratic guidance of incompetence. In essence, alliances under a foolish leader are never permanent or absolute. They are instruments to be used, adapted, and released according to circumstance, forming the foundation for survival, subtle dominance, and the quiet execution of long-term strategy. To navigate the treacherous terrain of foolish leadership, one must perfect the delicate balance of appearing loyal while thinking strategically. Outward displays of obedience, respect, and compliance are often necessary to avoid drawing suspicion or inciting insecurity. But beneath this surface, the mind must remain sharp, analytical, and unbound. The foolish leader is easily threatened by intelligence or independent thought, interpreting competence as disloyalty and subtlety as manipulation. By projecting loyalty, you create a shield that protects you from the volatility of their ego, while your private strategy positions you to act decisively when opportunities present themselves. Loyalty in appearance is not about submission. It is about control of perception. Those in power, particularly those who are incompetent, are guided more by emotion than reason. They crave affirmation, reassurance, and the sense that their authority is unquestioned. By providing this carefully crafted illusion, you minimize risk, maintain stability, and gain the freedom to maneuver strategically behind the scenes. Strategic thinking under such circumstances requires patience, foresight, and a thorough understanding of human nature. You must anticipate the actions of the leader, the reactions of colleagues, and the shifting dynamics within the organization, always considering both immediate consequences and long-term implications. By maintaining a facade of loyalty, you ensure that these calculations remain invisible, allowing you to prepare, adjust, and act without interference or preemption. The duality of appearing loyal while thinking independently also allows one to exploit the errors and weaknesses of the leader. As mistakes are made, gaps in authority and opportunity emerge, and those who have preserved their invisibility and composure can step in subtly to influence outcomes, redirect consequences, and accumulate advantage. The key is restraint. Actions must be measured, timing must be precise, and intervention must be discreet. Open defiance or visible ambition is a dangerous signal that invites retaliation, while careful, strategic maneuvering builds influence and consolidates position without provoking suspicion. Moreover, this approach cultivates the perception of reliability, discretion, and calm judgment. Colleagues and superiors alike may come to view you as dependable and non-threatening, unaware that your thoughts and intentions extend far beyond the superficial loyalty you display. This perception itself becomes a form of power, creating trust where others might expect only competition, and positioning you as someone whose influence is quiet but effective. Thinking strategically beneath the surface of loyalty also demands constant vigilance. Situations change, personalities shift, and the foolish leader's errors continue to accumulate unpredictably. Your mind must remain alert to new openings, ready to adapt tactics, and capable of adjusting alliances, responses, and actions according to evolving circumstances. By combining the outward appearance of allegiance with the inward practice of analysis and foresight, you create a dual strategy that protects against immediate threats while preparing for long-term success. Over time, this balance transforms the dynamic entirely. The leader remains unaware of your true capacity, peers underestimate your influence, and you gain freedom to act decisively when opportunity arises. Mastering the art of appearing loyal while thinking strategically is, therefore, not merely a survival tactic, but a framework for subtle dominance. It allows you to navigate the unpredictability of foolish leadership, shield yourself from direct conflict, and position your mind and actions to exploit circumstances that others cannot perceive. The outward display of submission becomes a weapon in itself, concealing intentions while allowing calculated, effective maneuvering. By maintaining this dual approach, you protect your security, consolidate influence, and prepare for the eventual moment when quiet strategy can translate into tangible advantage, demonstrating that real power is exercised not through visibility or confrontation, but through patience, perception, and the careful orchestration of thought and action. In the world of foolish leadership, survival is not enough. Mastery is the ultimate goal. By understanding weaknesses, speaking only when it benefits you, acting decisively from the shadows, turning mistakes into opportunity, forming discreet alliances, and appearing loyal while thinking strategically, you transform chaos into advantage. True power is quiet, patient, and calculated. It is achieved not through confrontation or visibility, but through observation, restraint, and foresight. Those who master these principles do not merely endure under incompetence. They thrive, shape outcomes, and rise above the blind, securing influence and opportunity while others remain trapped in confusion. Remember, the greatest victories are often unseen, the most lasting power built in silence, and the most cunning triumph achieved when others are unaware it has even begun.